Today we have session 2 of our Phrase Bootcamp series, and the topic is all about how you can ensure quality and mitigate risk in AI-powered workflows. And the reason we are coming with this webinar today is because at Phrase we have introduced a number of advanced capabilities in the past few months, many of which are driven by AI. And with this session, we want to provide you with a comprehensive view of how these innovations work together and to provide you with full control over automated processes and to safeguard the integrity of your content. And to talk us through all that today, we have 2 expert speakers. I would like to introduce Craig Stewart, Director of AI Research, joined by Bjorn Minkmar, VP of Product Strategy and Operations. And together they are going to share their insights and help you hopefully gain the confidence to manage content quality with these tools transparently and with a peace of mind. With that said, I'm going to pass the virtual mic to them. Craig, over to you.
Thank you so much, Clara, and great to see everybody, even though I can't see anybody at all. It's really great to be here. I'm very excited to dig into things with you. So we're going to start with a little tour of quality evaluation and its role in localization in particular, to kind of set the stage for the technology and understand where the pieces fit. I will then talk a little bit about our QPS, and you can figure out what that means and what we do with it. And I'll hand over to Bjorn, who will run us through another piece of technology called Auto LQA, which we'll discuss in some detail. And then we'll kind of come back together and I'll jump in back at the end and I'll talk about how it ties together in context of our hyper-automation vision. Okay, Clara, if you move ahead. So we'll start really at the highest level and thinking about, why quality evaluation is important in localization. So depending on your role and depending on your focus within your organization, you might have various questions around the quality of translated output that you're using within the context of a localization workflow. And this could be machine translation, human translation, whatever. The idea is that you need some kind of signal on translation quality to understand some of these things. So you might, for example, be interested in the accuracy of machine translation where you're applying a raw machine translation scenario. You might want to understand how good in general the translation is and how adequate it is, and especially how fit for purpose the translation is for your particular needs, whether they be style or brand expectations. And you might want to look at the post-editing output where you've had content post-edited to understand how effective that mechanism was in gaining in quality. And then generally, the key focus for this presentation and the role of the technologies here is in mitigating risk. So wherever you're spending budget on quality evaluation, whether that be for human LQA or other things, really what you're generally getting at is the risk of presenting this content to your end users. And really those questions of how good the translation quality is and how much risk there is in presenting that content to end users go very much hand in hand. And you'll see us bouncing around those ideas in this presentation. One very quick thing I want to highlight before I move into a bit deeper into quality evaluation is this question of how good is a translation, because this is a tremendously difficult question to answer, and it really depends very heavily on your perspective of translation quality. There were obviously objective expectations such as grammaticality and spelling and punctuation, those kinds of things, which are sort of easy to pin down. But there is a subjective element too, which relates to things like style and brand expectations. So the question of how good a translation is has a subjective element to it that is difficult to capture in many different scenarios. Next slide, please. So in quality evaluation, we will start with the human evaluation. If you're already doing some human evaluation, you have your own motivations for doing so. But if you haven't gone into the realm of quality evaluation yet at all, the kind of the cornerstone of evaluation is the human language quality assessment, LQA, because that's really your last line of defense. And particularly in higher risk scenario, the human evaluation is key. There are specific ISO regulations that necessitate human evaluation in certain circumstances, and it really is the best way at getting at an understanding of translation quality. And we understand that. What we're looking to do with the technology that we're presenting today is provide opportunity to optimize and scale this process, because The challenge of human LQA is the fact that it does not scale very well at all. Depending on your budget and the amount of spend that you can make on understanding the quality of your translation, human LQA can present something of a bottleneck. Because of the fact that there is cost and resource investment involved, it's very difficult to have everything you produce within your localization workflow evaluated by humans. So this is where the hyper-automation element comes in and the technologies come into play, in the sense that what we're trying to do is optimize the human touch within workflows to drive at human touch where it is absolutely necessary for that higher risk content. And next slide. So with quality information, when you've done a human evaluation or any other kind of evaluation of translation quality, what are some things that you could do with that information? Well, we're focused here on 3 particular scenarios, one in which you get a quality signal on a translated piece of content and decide where to put it. Do you want to send it directly out the door to the customer? Do you want to route it to LQA for deeper analysis? Do you want to send it to post-editing or any other solution that can fix up or tweak the content to make it fit your particular expectation? You might also want to analyze the translation issues and try to drive at, depending again on your role within your organization, you might want to try to get at the root of problems. Is it a problem with your glossary? Is it your translation memory that's off? Where are the issues and how might you be able to fix them? And then the key thing for us is transparency, right? Is when you're translating at scale, maybe using MT, for example, it's very difficult to understand how the quality fits into your workflow and what the quality of the output is at any scale beyond what you can afford to send through human evaluation. And so monitoring quality is of course important as well. I wanted to just take a quick minute to touch on MQM, because MQM is at the core of everything that we're doing and everything that we present. And MQM has lived in our ecosystem for some time. We allow evaluation with MQM through our human LQA platform. And basically what it is a mechanism and a framework for establishing what are the granular errors within a particular translation. So when humans are doing their review, they're digging into the translation, understanding where the errors are, assigning a particular category to the error and a severity to allow us to understand exactly what the types of errors are. And this is the whole reason and the output of human LQA. This is kind of what it looks like. So you get this granular feedback on translation quality. I want to highlight this for 2 reasons. Firstly, because you can identify from the slide here that the MQM outputs a score. And so this score is a quality signal that is consistent with the technology that we'll produce in a minute. All of our technology is based around the MQM framework, such that you get consistency in the metrics across the board. And then the more pressing reason for leaning into MQM is that this is now the industry standard for translation quality evaluation in particular. And we're very interested in aligning ourselves with the industry standards such that you can make comparisons and benchmark across platforms, across solutions, and really have a really interpretable understanding of exactly what the translation quality looks like. So, go to the next slide. This is where I'll start talking now about the role of the quality technology. So we've already touched on the difficulties and the bottleneck presented by human evaluation. The idea of introducing these technologies is to allow you to scale the evaluations and provide much, much more visibility on translation quality. And then again, I've talked about risk, the idea that you can use part of these solutions or a combination of these solutions to mitigate the risk of applying automation to your localization workflows. So I will start on the next slide by talking about QPS. And this is the first piece of technology that we'll present. This was released and introduced into the Phrase platform back in December last year. We've done some significant work on it over the past year, working with customers, making various improvements to it. But the QPS score stands for, QPS is the Quality Performance Score. And the idea is to enable quality insight at scale. This is a very, very fast and lightweight AI tool. Specifically, it is not LLM-based. It's not based on something like ChatGPT as our other piece of technology are. This is intended to be a very fast at-a-glance assessment at segment and job level of translation quality. which can enable a couple of different things. Firstly, it enables broad quality visibility. So where previously, if you were applying raw machine translation, maybe through our language AI platform, you would have no idea about the quality of the solution coming in. You have some reliance on things like the auto select feature to enable the best quality engine for your content type. But at a granular level, at a job level, without this quality information and without the benefit of human review, you really have no idea how things are going. And so the role of QPS here is to provide this high level, lightweight, at a glance assessment of quality to enable that visibility at scale. We also use it within the platform as a routing mechanism. So one of the things I identified before that you might want to do is make decisions about where to put content. And QPS is available through the TMS and through Orchestrator in particular as a mechanism for routing content, making a judgment of translation quality, setting a threshold, and understanding that with a particular threshold, you can route it in a particular direction, whether that be directly to the customer in a lower risk scenario or to another of our solutions like the Auto LQA, post-editing with humans, or human LQA, a bunch of different things that you can do with it. So in the next couple of slides, I'll show where in the platform it sits. Firstly, in the TMS platform, within the pre-translate workflow, we allow configuration of a threshold for QPS. So QPS here is applied to all content through the pre-translate workflow, and gives an output score of 0 to 100, which then can enable you to do different things. And we have a generic threshold, a default threshold set that allows routing to humans and bypassing the human steps, including post-editing, that allow you to have some control and optimize the amount of content that is sent to humans. Again, I've already highlighted that this is configurable, so you can work with us to understand what threshold works best for your content and that we can tune it to provide the best return on investment. In the next slide, we have phrase strings. We've also deployed it within the CAT tool for phrase strings so that editors can see that score when they're doing, get that at-a-glance assessment when they're working through their post-editing workflow and understanding at a glance where the key issues are. QPS is a great ring fencing mechanism, finding the worst case scenario translations and allowing editors to really focus their attention on the worst stuff to get the most out of their workflow. And then finally, within language AI, phrase language AI over API, QPS scores are emitted with return with translations at a job level. So again, you can make that decision what to do with the content as you receive it back through the API, through language AI. Okay. Just to recap very quickly, why is QPS interesting within a workflow? Well, first of all, it provides that quality insight at scale. It also is one of the key enablers of our hyperautomation vision within the platform because you can use it as a routing mechanism, as a ring fencing mechanism, or as a filtering mechanism for content to enable things to be automatically routed and directed in a particular way. And then with alignment with MQM, so the scores output by QPS align with the MQM framework, it provides that data consistency across the platform. So when you do your human LQA, you can compare it to a QPS score that you saw previously and demonstrate improvement and return on investment in particular. So in the next couple of slides, if you switch over, I want to just very, very quickly highlight a couple of slides that demonstrate how QPS is helping customers to optimize their workflow. We ran a couple of case studies with different customers over the past year using QPS to try to figure out with them and tune the threshold to help them to understand what is the potential cost saving that could be introduced. In this particular scenario, we're looking at a workflow with machine translation with human post-editing, where the customer is trying to optimize the amount of content that goes through post-editing and allow the best content to flow through directly to the customer, to the end user. And here, what we're doing along the bottom is this is dollars and the cost of human evaluation. And along the left hand, the y-axis, you're looking at the QPS threshold. So we plotted every QPS threshold and understood at each point what volume of content, what would be the cost of human evaluation were QPS to reject that volume of content. And you can see that there's a kind of a steady drop off and then a sudden drop off towards the end where everything is, of course, sent to the human. In the next couple of slides, I'll show this in a couple of different ways. In the first, looking at volume, with a threshold of 95, so a 0.95 QPS score. This is in the higher ranges for maybe higher risk, moderate to higher risk content. You can see that a large portion of the volume was below the threshold and was rejected and sent to the human. But by just tweaking the threshold slightly by 5 points down to 90, you can see the volumes shift. And there's a lot more, you can imagine a scenario here where there's a greater tolerance for risk, a lot more of that content is allowed to flow through, and a lot less of the content is sent to humans, which in the next slide, Clara, I'll demonstrate as it equates to return on investment. In real numbers, if you imagine the total spend on human evaluation for this particular case study that we did being around 55,000, at 95, you can tune it such that you're saving near on $10,000, or even more if you had that tolerance for risk, you could tune it to double the cost savings with just a 5-point increase. Okay, that's what I have on QPS. I'll now hand you over to Bjorn, who will talk about Auto LQA. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Happy to take over. Also, big hello from my side. I'm happy to take you basically to the capabilities of Auto LQA. And if we want to make ourselves familiar with Auto LQA, it's probably good to put things into perspective and remind ourselves of a time where like automated aspects and the translation workflow steps were still missing. Yeah, so there's been a time where like translation memories like matches weren't around, where automatic detection of untranslatable weren't around, and machine translations obviously did not yet exist. Yeah, so you had to have humans in the loop. Translators were needed to translate each word manually. And lucky us, that has changed over time. So just to point out and put this into perspective with maybe clear numbers, that today basically like post-editing machine translations then enables customers to really reduce that translation cost significantly. That can be around like, and turnaround times almost like by over 40%. And if you consider specific content types and workflows where customers basically go for a fully automated translation without any humans involvement, then actually that can go up to 90% of savings in both costs and time. Yeah, and that's basically just for the step of translations in itself. And now imagine you would be able to apply all of this like to language quality assessment, achieving basically the same level of efficiency. And the great news is that this is now possible by introducing Auto LQA. So as Craig already basically set the stage, there's typically a clear value in language quality assessment, but obviously it's inefficient and highly costly if that needs to be done with human translators. So what we're basically now offering is that Auto LQA is leveraging AI to actually deliver the same results and generate the same output as like a linguist would actually do it. And it's leveraging all of the capabilities that Phrase provides. And it's nicely embedded into the interfaces and workflows that are already well established in the Phrase platform. And the fantastic news is that it's not reinventing the wheel, is actually following a standard and a standardized process and framework, the MQM framework, that is like broadly adopted and established across the industry. Yeah. So all of the translation errors that Auto LQA is detecting are actually following that standard. And it's flagging them basically for specific error categories. It's pointing out the level of severity, and it's enabling you basically to also attach detailed feedback to specific segments. And then on top of this, and I think, Craig, you already pointed it out, but it's like worth re-emphasizing on it. On top of this, it's creating like an automated scoring in the range of 0 to 100 across like on a job level, across everything. And yeah, it's giving you insights and basically also providing you with like the specific capabilities for automating things to a larger degree. Scorecards can be downloaded and shared basically with colleagues, basically providing insights to stakeholders on the level of quality as it's been assessed. And all of this finds its way also into Phrase Analytics. So the detailed breakdown of the errors detected per customer, per client, per project, per language pair, all of these valuable insights can now be also found in Phrase Analytics, helping you to drill down and compare human LQA to Auto LQA and get like an understanding of where basically specific error types are occurring, and providing you really meaningful data insights to take actions and leverage the system even more strongly. And all of this now comes in a validation mode. Yeah, so we're basically adding it and enabling linguists to take advantage of this Auto LQA capabilities to benefit from the boost in efficiency. And if we move on to the next slide, then for comparison and just to basically capture the key pain points and benefits of obviously of LQA in general, but then the benefits that come along with Auto LQA, obviously it's like it's a very intense, or it has been a very intense process of human LQA. Yeah, it's very manual, and obviously it comes with very high costs per words, and the turnaround times obviously also quite high, and you need to have experts on the team or basically hand it over to experts in order to ensure that you're getting to the results that you're looking for. So that's the reason why Phrase customers use it, but they use it cautiously, yeah, with a clear awareness of the costs and the investments for human LQA. So it's a very selective process right now, and only applied to limited, well-chosen resources or content types. So now, obviously, with the power of Auto LQA, that's opening up all of the benefits that that LQA provides, but at a completely different scale. Yeah. So we're aiming basically to establish this as the new industry standard. It's similar to basically how human LQA is working, but obviously at a friction of the cost, with much better and faster turnaround times. We're like shifting from weeks to hours, and it's freeing up capacity and resources right now, because like humans can actually focus on different things in the workflow steps. And it's super user-friendly. That means like it seamlessly integrates, as I pointed out, into the existing well-known and established interfaces. So means like there's no additional training even required for that. And this allows now for cost savings of up to like 35 to 65%, and time savings from like roughly 70% to almost 99%. So there's like clear benefits provided by Auto LQA. And to put this into perspective, again, we're providing you here with like a high-level view of like a typical LQA workflow, where you have like automated translating, and then typically the workflow steps of human post-editing thereafter, and then you want to run it through Auto LQA. Yeah, so that's where you apply these AI-based quality assessment and using the Phrase quality technologies to provide you with insights into that. Typically, it can be followed up by human LQA validation for like the ones where you detected issues, and then follows up obviously by human editing to fix those errors detected by LQA throughout the process. And the use cases for LQA, I think we're now basically providing use case benefits that basically were currently obviously limited and constrained by the cost effects to it. Now, with the cost efficiency, that's opening up like a new spectrum of use cases. Yeah. So obviously, generally speaking, it's making the whole LQA process more time and cost efficient, but you can also now extend obviously the benefits of Auto LQA to a broader range of content. It means like you can cover, using existing budgets, you can cover more content to be evaluated. You can also evaluate the performance of new translation vendors. And you can also, obviously, it offers the capability and opportunity to periodically review the content on samples from specific vendors, just to ensure the consistent in quality over time. And you can also obviously assess the quality of custom MT models alongside automated evaluation of Phrase custom AI. So to have a specific breakdown on cost savings, just as an example, quickly running you through this, we took an example where we say we're using 100,000 words for LQA, and basically putting some metrics for human LQA. We basically took $50 per hour and a processing time of 400 words per hour as like the throughput. And if you take this into consideration, we're now basically benchmarking three types of processing. One obviously is the human LQA, where we could calculate basically on the given word count, you would end up with a total of 10,000 of investment for human LQA. And then you can already see if you combine Auto LQA with human LQA and run it in validation mode, you can clearly see that there obviously are the costs of Auto LQA, which sum up to be $3,500, and then an additional $3,000 for human LQA validation. Yeah. And that in total basically is already a cost saving of 35%. And in comparison, you can even extend it to 65% if you go all in and completely basically run the LQA with Auto LQA. So that's on the cost saving side of things. And then for time savings also, you can run through the same scenarios. And then basically for comparison, you see that obviously in total, you would be spending 200 hours for the same amount of words to be processed in human LQA. And again, with a mixed mode of Auto LQA and human LQA, you would be already saving on time up to 69%. And if you completely pass it through Auto LQA in full automated mode, it's 99% in time saving. Yeah, so that's definitely a clear boost in cost and time savings if used in mixed mode or basically in isolation. Yeah, obviously, yeah. Customers clearly see the benefit of this. I think that's clear. We don't have to read that aloud to you. And then I think we can already move on to the next slide, which would take us to hyperautomation. And I'm happy to pass it back to you, Craig.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so I will jump back in just very quickly for a few slides. We're doing great for time. We've got plenty of time for questions and lots of questions coming in, so we'll have a good amount of time for discussion. But I wanted to try to present the bigger picture here and kind of step back a level. So we presented two tiers of quality technology, as I see them, right? We have QPS, which is very, very lightweight, a highly scalable estimate of translation quality that provides that broad visibility. And then something more granular and nuanced and robust in Auto LQA that can also be applied in concert with that human evaluation there to provide cost savings in both places. Clara, if you jump to the first slide, I'll demonstrate that you could potentially then, you can imagine a scenario, and again, depending on your risk profile, your risk tolerance, you could combine these features in a different way to provide various checks and balances and guardrails against issues. But in a scenario in which the two are in play together, you could see that a first pass at a glance evaluation of translation quality you can achieve with QPS at scale to allow you to understand how to ring fence the content, how to identify the core issues and the biggest areas of concern. And then either in a scenario where you're tolerant of risk, you could route that content or the successful content to directly to your end users, or go deeper with Auto LQA, provide an opportunity for a more granular, robust evaluation that will help you, having ring-fenced some of those issues in a pipeline where it fails a QPS threshold, understand exactly what those issues are. To give a hint about how to fix them. Is it a glossary issue? Is it a translation memory issue? Is it something else that is it hinting at a style or things like that? So a lot of things that you can do with Auto LQA in concert with QPS. And in general, what we're doing is creating this ecosystem of technology, right, that provides optimization for automation. We've demonstrated independently the cost benefits, the return on investment that's available with both technologies. A combination of these things into a workflow that's customized to your particular use case can provide tremendous benefit. If I step to the next slide, more broadly, you can see that these technologies are really driving and are the centerpiece of our hyperautomation vision. I won't go deeply into this particular circular workflow, but this envisages a time in which we're generating content with LLMs, right? And we want to understand the success of that. So we're curating assets that we can then use within the translation process. And along the way, using these thresholds, using QPS, using Auto LQA to have visibility and understand the value of the particular solution that we're building, and optimizing on human touch. Really, as it says here, paving the way for human touch by exception. I think there's just one more kind of summary slide. Generally, what we're driving at with hyperautomation driven by the quality technologies, including things like QPS and Auto LQA, is that we provide the opportunity for that evaluation at scale. If you remember the bottleneck I presented initially, where human evaluation, whilst it's the best thing that you can possibly do at the moment, doesn't scale well, here we're trying to provide the opportunity for scalable evaluation that enables that broader visibility. It also enables decisioning, right? The idea that you can use things like the QPS thresholds and the Auto LQA result to route content in different directions and automate some workflows that enable you to optimize on that human touch. And then more generically, transform the localization process as a whole and pave the way for a future where we're doing things like generating content with LLMs and trying to provide guardrails and safeguards against failure and managing and mitigating risk to your end customers. Okay, that's what we have for you today. So yeah, Clara, I'll hand off to you and we can look at the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Bjorn and Craig, for your presentations. I think it was excellent. And now, just before we have a look at the questions, of which we have many, I wanted to quickly invite everyone to the third and last session of our bootcamp series this week. Happening tomorrow at the same time as this one, we will have a look at the Phrase portal, an easy-to-use, secure interface that enables teams across your organization to independently access high-quality machine translation. And I think we are ready to move over to Slido for questions. First off, though, we will have a look at the beautiful cloud of cities from which you are joining us today. Sunny Budapest, I can see. Lovely. All right. I will now switch to questions and let's start from the top. I saw that there was some discussion already where you also were answering to each other, which we love to see. It's great to see that this topic is interesting to you. And let's get going. A question about when the recordings will be available. I wanted to review yesterday's recording with my manager. Will it be available soon? I can cover that one. I will be processing all of the recordings of the bootcamp series together. So after tomorrow's session on the Phrase portal, I will process them, put them in one email, and send it out to you all. So you will be able to rewatch all 3 sessions together. So hopefully 99% it will be on Friday, so you can rewatch that. All right, next question. Can you show an example of how QPS can be used to route translations?
So I'm hopeful, and I think this question came in before we were presenting the kind of the hyperautomation vision at the end with the pieces stacked together. So I'm hopeful that that's sufficient to answer this question. But if there's a need for it, we can send some more granular information about how to piece together the workflows offline. But yeah, just to quickly summarize, I envision a kind of combination of the things working in concert, whereby we have QPS thresholds that are ring-fencing content and routing them in a particular direction. So I hope that came across relatively clear for now.
Right, thank you. Next one, QPS is useful in many scenarios, but it also consumes 50% of the cost of MTUs. Would Phrase consider allowing to turn it off in some scenarios where you just want a raw MT and don't need to know about quality score?
So yeah, maybe I can talk to that. So obviously we when we're calculating the MTU consumption, that's basically the unit being applied whenever you apply like these language capabilities to your content. There are specific features that basically have a certain weight when used on the MT engines. QPS is basically part of Phrase language ASI. The same is true for auto select. So when these features are being applied or not applied, that weight is basically part of the calculations. So it's not an issue if you use it or not. Basically, the calculation, the place, or the weight is basically being applied.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next question. Hi, guys. Do you foresee a moment when Auto LQA will start to process information from translation memories and term bases to avoid suggesting improvements where the client has pre-established consolidated vocabulary? Craig.
Yeah, I can take this question, and I really I really like the question. And for transparency, this is really the focus of our current research and development on Auto LQA is the combination of assets and things like that to get at a customized vision. Of course, Auto LQA and all of the technologies at the moment center around the MQM core typology. The initial reason for doing that was that we wanted to unify things and maintain this consistency across the numbers that you're looking at the end of the day. But of course, we recognize that, I've talked already about the subjective element and things like term bases provide a specific perspective on translation quality that's important to take into account. And we're already looking at ways, and the direction for Auto LQA is exactly this, right? Incorporating customer assets and trying to provide a customized vision of translation quality in particular. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Next one, in Auto LQA, are severity and category customizable within a client's organization?
Yeah, so I've partially answered this already. Currently, the answer is no, but there's definitely, again, some directionality behind this. This is something we're interested in introducing in Auto LQA at some point in the future, and this is something we're focusing investigation at the moment, is how we could provide that configurability to Auto LQA. But yes, that's definitely something we're thinking about.
Okay, thank you. Could you automate LQA processes so that it does an evaluation on each vendor after, let's say, 20 completed jobs?
That's a good question, to be honest. It's touching on a level of granularity that I think we need to follow up and look into this. My first answer would be to positively confirm, because with the Phrase orchestrator, we basically have everything in place to really set up specific workflows. And I honestly believe that this must be possible. But let's double check with our solution architects, and then we probably, in this specific case, Clara can follow up with a dedicated answer.
Absolutely. All right. Will all error categories in the MQM framework be eventually detectable by Auto LQA?
The obvious answer to this question is yes. Already we're at a point where it is doing most of the work and using the majority of the typology to assign error categories. What we're doing at the moment in particular, and some of the work we're doing in the background, is working on the distribution of categories. So the Auto LQA has preferences, just like humans do, for certain types of errors and error categories, and broadening that distribution such that it's touching all of the different areas of typology is something we're actively doing at the moment. But yes, I think we'll very easily get to a point where the entire framework is covered. And I've also hinted as well that we'd be trying at some point to try to make it customizable per customer as well, and allowing customers to get in and specify what categories they're interested in. But again, that's development work in progress. So we'll give more updates on that when that comes. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you at Phrase also have or work with native linguists who can have a look at the machine translation to ensure quality if necessary? This might be interesting for us in addition to our own in-country review. So Bjorn, maybe, or?
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So that's not a service we offer per default because we're a technology provider. Yeah, obviously we do have relationship with LSPs, but I think it's like you can probably reach out to LSPs yourself. In that case, that's like the better approach to take.
Thank you. Where can we get granular information about the language pairs covered by Auto LQA?
I want to be on if we this is specifically in the documentation. My assumption is that it is. We can probably confirm offline. But for the time being, I think it's sufficient to say that Auto LQA is highly multilingual, right? We've tested and proven it on a number of different language pairs. As is the case with many of these LLM-based features, they have really tremendous multilingual capabilities.
You and another one. I am not familiar with the MQM framework. Thus, what are the categories that are checked with Auto LQA? Can this really check semantically incorrect translations?
Semantically, yes, absolutely. That's one of the key things that it does pretty well. For information on MQM, just in the webinar chat here, I just posted the external website. This has nothing to do with Phrase. This is the group that that put together the MQM typology. Thank you, Clara. So go there and take a look and read up on what MQM is. I think for anybody who's not familiar with MQM, it is definitely worthwhile doing. This is something I think we'll see more and more and more of as more technology providers in particular pick up on this. There's definitely been a stream of a trend, I think, particularly with types of technology like the quality estimation technology with QPS, for example, where providers are leaning into MQM as the foundation for these technologies and leaning away in particular from post-edit distance, which is the way that we used to measure translation quality automatically with things like MTQE. So go ahead and take a look at the website there, and there's plenty of information about what that covers and what that looks like.
Okay. Thank you very much, Craig and Bjorn. I think we are slowly done with the time that was reserved for today's session. So I'm going to have to, end the webinar at this point. We see that there are some more questions. Don't worry, we see them. We will follow up with them. They are mostly, towards some specific use cases. So it might be more beneficial to, ask for even follow-up information on your use case and then follow up, one by one. So we will definitely do that. And I hope to see most of you tomorrow at the portal webinar, final session of our series, Phrase Bootcamp. And yeah, thank you again, Craig and Bjorn, for your wonderful contributions. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.